authors list. This is Danai Kotra from the University of Michigan, who kindly represents those two PhD candidates who are the authors of How to Build Your Fan Base, the Effectiveness of Promotional Events in Social Media. And to the speakers, I'll show like that when you have 3 minutes left, okay?
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. Today I'll be talking about the effectiveness of marketing strategies in social media. Since I'm not the author of the paper, I'll ask you to send the questions through email to the authors. So let's start and see about this. So social media has fundamentally changed the way we collaborate, consume, and communicate with each other. Right? The increasing presence of firms on social media space has significantly changed how consumers and firms interact. And social media has often been characterized as disruptive technology because it can transform and create new business models, such as the social commerce venture that is the focus of this paper. At the same time, consumers spend increasing amount of time online. So it has been estimated that an average user, an average person in the US, spends about 6 hours online, and across different devices such as laptops, tablets, mobile. And we spend more time on social networks than on any other online activity, including email, according to a Nielsen report. So it's not a surprise that companies are trying to spend a growing amount of their marketing budget on the online space and on social media. And they are trying to compete for users' attention and engagement in social media. Now, there are two main differences between social media and other types of media. The first one is that social media allow for consumer and firm interactions that go beyond one-way messaging. So users can now comment, they can recommend the products and the services they buy to other users. And firms can leverage also the social network, the underlying social network, and reach out to people that they could not reach otherwise. Now, as firms recognize the strategic importance of social media, they invent also new ways to capitalize on the opportunities social media generate. For instance, we've seen voluntary post-purchase shares on Amazon and other online platforms. Now, this paper focuses on the rising social commerce venture, the boundaries of which are kind of ambiguous. Right? The term social commerce emerged in 2005. It was first introduced by Yahoo, and it was used to refer to a feature that allowed users to review products on the Yahoo's shopping online platform. Now, later on, the term expanded, and it now includes more things like peer recommendations, shared shopping lists, team buying, product referrals, deal of the day websites, and many more. And you can think about it as it captures the integration of online merchandisers with social network platforms. Now, the social commerce that they study in this paper is called Pay by Tweet. They focus on American Express, on the post that American Express has on Twitter about promotional events. And this social commerce venture can redefine the social commerce concept. So what is unique in this case is that purchases happen within the social media platform, and the transactions are visible to the users of Twitter, especially the followers of the person who tweets about it. And the social neighbors, if you will, are also exposed to public advocacy and endorsement. Another key component of this social venture is that it employs core features of the platform, such as the hashtags, the designated hashtags of Twitter. Now let me show you an example of a social commerce transaction. Right, so here we have American Express. It announces a product through a tweet. So this is about Whole Foods. It says what is the discount, how much the users how much the customer needs to pay in an in-store purchase, when the offer expires, and also they post this hashtag that the user should use in order to claim the offer. Now, a user who's interested in it can retweet this tweet or tweet a new personalized message where they have to use this designated hashtag. And the important thing is to have a public account so that other people can see the retweet. Now, yeah, and also the message is visible to the social neighbors of the person who purchases the product, and they can also purchase the same thing. Now, in the case of an actual purchase, there will have to, another confirmation follows up in an offline way. Now, this social commerce venture has become very popular. And just for perspective, a credit of $100 million in total has been claimed by customers of American Express, as they announced in September 2014. Now, the short-term effects seem straightforward. Like, for instance, customers save money and time, and firms generate sales, and they also generate buzz around their brands. What the paper focuses on is the long-term effects of such social media campaigns. And specifically, the research questions that they are trying to answer in this paper have to do with whether promotional events with implicit and explicit advocacy have an impact on the online fan base of the participating brands. Then which firms benefit more from such promotional campaigns? Is it firms that have a few fans or firms with a bigger fan base? So do we see any rich get richer effect, or what types of effects do we see in this case? Then the third thing they're interested in is that if the time affects the effect of the promotional event. So should they post these promotional events during peak hours, from noon to 4 p.m. in the case of Twitter, or during other times so that they don't compete with more events and more things that are happening on the platform? And finally, they want to see whether the expected benefits influence the consumer behavior. Right? Do I prefer promotional events for which I gain more? The discount is bigger, for instance, or this doesn't matter for consumers. Now, all the questions they're interested in have to do with the effect on the social media fan base. And the reason is that the fan base is important. Right? First of all, it's a visible, important indicator of the firm performance. You can think about you can think of every user as an implicit word of mouth and recommendation. Then economies of scale also facilitate future marketing objectives. So the bigger fan base a company has, the more it can generate brand awareness and create engagement. Then according to the hierarchy of effects model, social media marketing objectives are directly linked to increased sales. And according to the literature, social media-based metrics are leading indicators of firm equity value. So the fan base is important, and that's why they're looking into the effect of a promotional event on that. So let's see the data they used for their analysis. So they used all the promotional events on Twitter by American Express and partners. This consists of about 65 million tweets, more than 2 million users. There are daily observations for about 22,000 firms. And in total, they have 288 promotional events for about 189 brands. Now, for each promotional event, they have several. So they have a lot of available information, including the discount of the offer, the minimum amount in dollars that the user has to pay in order to get the offer, whether it's an in-store purchase or it can be used online, if it's a specific product purchase or a discount offer for the next purchase they make, whether it can be claimed multiple times from a single person, then the number of followers of this brand, how popular it is, and when the offer was announced. And for the people and the brands on Twitter that have been verified on Twitter, they also have the number of followers, the number of friends, and the number of statuses that they have since 2011 or from the time they created their accounts. Now, to answer the research questions that I mentioned before, they use the event study methodology. So I'll go through the steps of this methodology. The first step is to identify the event of interest. So in the case of this analysis, what they care about is the promotional events that were announced on Twitter. And once they do that, they have to define the event window. Which time span are they looking at in order to study this effect? And following the literature in this paper, they define only 5 days. They use 5 days before the event and after the event to do the estimation. And they also have to select the sample set of firms to be included in the analysis. So here they started with all the companies that announced some promotional event or that were affected by a promotional event. But at the final set, they keep only the companies for which there are no confounding factors. For instance, there is no other offline promotion that is going on and that might affect the results. Then once they define these 3 things, they have to do the prediction. So predict what would be the normal returns, the normal change in the fan base of the company if there was no promotional event announced. And they also estimate the abnormal returns. Now, given the promotional event, how much did the fan base actually change? And at the end, they test the statistical significance of the abnormal returns. So here you can see a graphical representation of the event study methodology. So right here, we have when the promotional event was announced. And 5 days before the event, and the data that was generated during those 5 days is used to estimate the normal returns of the company, what would be the fan base after the event. So they assume that there is no event happening. They use the data after the announcement of the promotional event to estimate the actual abnormal returns. And during the whole period, they make sure that they don't have these confounding events. So to remove confounding events, they had 2 graduate students identify them. So they generated a small set of observations that way, and they also used the LexisNexis database, which has several full-text articles in newspapers, magazines, and journals. So they could find offline promotional events that should be removed. Now, there are a lot of different ways to study the effects. They used this event study methodology, and 2 advantages of this methodology is that it is not limited on only 2 time periods. So it's not that they don't have to have only pre-intervention and post-intervention time periods. And another good thing about it is that it does not assume anything special for the event. The event does not have to be exactly the same for all treated members, or it does not have to have the same effect in every time period. It's not static. It doesn't have to not have a duration. And they also don't need any control groups. So it has several advantages over other methods that could be used for the same analysis. Now, the significance of the impact of the event during the event window is assessed by examining the cumulative abnormal returns, which is given by the function at the top. And this entails a subtraction between the actual observed returns and the predicted counterfactual. And I'll go over the model that they used for the actual observed returns. So what they compute is essentially the natural logarithm of the number of followers at day t over the number of followers on the previous day, on day t minus 1. And the variables that they're looking at are which day of the week the promotion was announced, whether it was a bank holiday or not. They use this follower ratio but now only for a specific brand and for verified firms. Then there is a term that captures the same ratio, but for similar firms, and similarity is defined based on the followers. Then there is a term, a similar term again with the logarithm of the followers ratio, where the similarity of firms is based on the economic and industry sector. Then they take into account the number of messages that were posted by brand I. Yeah, sorry, this is our cutoff. So this is the number of messages that were posted by brand I at time t. And the last factor they have captures the trend, the time trend of change in performance. Okay, so let's see one example. Here the figure shows for a specific firm the observed time series, which is with solid line, and the predicted counterfactual with dashed line. And this vertical line corresponds to the announcement of the promotional event. So the y-axis is the number of followers, and they use that for illustrative purposes, while in the previous slide I told you that what they really compute is a natural logarithm of the ratio of the followers on day t and t minus 1. Now, another view of the same analysis is in this plot, where they visualize the actual returns minus the predicted returns. So you see that the promotional event had a significant effect, and the fan base of this specific firm increased significantly. And another way to visualize it is through the abnormal cumulative returns, the cumulative abnormal returns. So what they have done is they summed up the abnormal returns on the event window, and again, you see the effect of the promotional event. Now, employing the event study methodology, they find that the cumulative abnormal returns are positive, and they are statistically significant at the 1% level. And something to take away here is that the brands which participate in promotional events are more likely to attract more followers and expand their fan base. And besides that, the identified effect is also economically significant, as it corresponds to an increase of about 5,000 additional new followers for a brand of an average size. Now, they also conducted a complementary analysis where they wanted to understand the differences in the abnormal returns for different firms. So the model they used is at the top, and this XI has to do with several characteristics of the promotion, like the discount, the minimum cost, the minimum amount of money that a user should pay in order to get the offer, whether it's an in-store purchase or not, if they can use it unlimited times or it's only for one time. And there's also this WI term, which has to do with the initial size of the fan base of the company. So what you should take away from this is that a promotional event from a brand with a smaller existing fan base is less likely to attract new followers. And a promotion that is announced at the time of peak usage of the social media platform is more likely to attract more followers for the participating brand, despite the competition that exists during the peak hours. And consistent with prior literature, they also saw that a larger percentage discount and a smaller required amount to spend to purchase something is more desirable for users. And also, something that is available online and not only for in-store purchase, and if the user can use the coupon or the offer multiple times, is much more desirable. Now, they also conducted several robustness checks to see whether the model they have captures the real effects or not. And what they tried is different specifications for the dependent variable. So they don't only use this logarithm of the followers, but also the percentage change in the number of followers of the company. They tried different numbers for the similar companies that they use. So from 5 to 50, they use a range. They use different predictor time series. So they average over similar companies instead of using the time series for all the similar companies. They use pooled and individual regression models. And they also tried different lengths of estimation and event windows. And the last thing they did was some falsification checks. So they wanted to, they run some falsification tests to randomly generate when an event took place. And they wanted to see whether the effect they're measuring is really there. And you see that in the case where they randomly generate those, the times, they get a negative coefficient, which means that they really discover the actual effects. So in a made-up situation, they don't see the same effect in the changes of the fan. So overall, promotional events with advocacy attract new followers. There is the rich gets richer effect. The bigger the fan base, the more followers are attracted at the end due to promotional events. The posting, to post ads, it's best to do it during the peak hour, and the expected benefits influence the consumer behavior. One limitation is that they restricted their analysis to 5 days before and after the event. And that's it. Thank you for listening. And if you have questions, send them to the authors.